I am Elias Greywind, the gatekeeper of peace, and where you've stopped tonight is stories for a restful soul, a quiet haven crafted just for your spirit. Take a deep breath, feel this gentle warmth, and let my stories, like a soft autumn breeze, carry you into a world of stillness and deep, peaceful sleep. Tonight, I'll tell you about a place, once home to 10,000 souls, but now only the wind whispers through its weathered wooden frames. The story begins on a dusty hill in the American West, where time feels as if it stopped long ago. Bodie, the forgotten town. It was in the year 1876, when gold was discovered deep beneath this land. The rumor spread, swift and fierce, like fire across a dry prairie. Within just a few months, hundreds arrived, then thousands. They built homes, opened shops, raised schools, banks, even saloons. Bodie quickly became one of the most bustling gold towns in all of California. Laughter echoed through the saloons. Church bells rang from the wooden chapel, and the clatter of mining machines carried on through the night. But like a delicate veil of mist, the golden glow slowly faded with time. As the gold ran dry, hope faded with it. People left, leaving behind wooden houses, unmade beds, and letters that were never sent. No one destroyed Bodie. The town simply stopped. As if time itself had chosen to stand still, you can walk through the houses where dusty curtains still hang, and see a needle paused mid-stitch in a piece of unfinished embroidery. The old piano in the saloon still stands, silent, yet somehow it feels as if it's playing a song without words. For the souls who've long since gone, there are no human voices left. Only the wind remains. But it is the wind that tells the story. Some say, if you come to Bodie at dusk and stand quietly before house number 47, you might hear footsteps pacing the hallway upstairs. Not because someone still lives there, but because the story isn't over. And memories, they never truly leave. When night falls, the moon slips across old rooftops, casting light on memories lying quiet, like verses of a poem that were never written down. I once met an old man. He had spent his entire childhood here. He told me that every winter morning his mother would light the stove, warming up whatever bread and honey they had left. We weren't rich, he said, but we lived in days when laughter still echoed through these thin wooden walls. He lives somewhere else now, but Bodie still visits him in dreams. The place I feel most at peace, he said, is the one where no one lives anymore. Bodie was once a place for dreamers, those who believed that a single strike of a pick could change their fate, that a patch of barren land could become a city. They lived fast and left early, leaving behind stories only the wind remembers. There was once a family there, Mr. Nelson, his wife, and their little girl, Eliza. They lived in the house at the bottom of the hill, where the window frame had faded to pale blue from years of sun and sand. Each evening, Eliza would sit by that window, watching the dusty road where her father would return after a long day at the mine. In her journal, the little girl once wrote, "Father came home after dark, covered in golden dust. He held me in his arms and he smelled of earth and coal." In her journal, the little girl once wrote, "Father came home after dark, covered in golden dust. He held me in his arms and he smelled of earth and coal." They say, on certain nights, if you stand near that house, you might see the shadow of a little girl dart past the window, even though no one has lived in the town for decades. Not far from there stood a modest loft, the home of a miner named Isaac Whitmore. He was a solitary man, with no friends, no family, and no one waiting for him. He was known as the last man to remain when the town was finally abandoned. They say, on the day Isaac left, he locked the door from the outside, slipped the key into an envelope, and wrote on it, "For the one who comes after." But no one ever came, and the letter was carried away by the wind, lost forever in the rain gutter. Decades later, a group of travelers stumbled upon that very house. When they opened the door, there was still a warm cup of tea sitting on the table. They couldn't explain it, but one of them, a photographer, swore that in the photo he took, there was a shadow of a man sitting by the fireplace, even though, in truth, there were only 4 people in the group. The wind in Bodie is strange. It's more than just sound. At times it murmurs, as if retelling stories. Some say the wind in Bodie remembers. It remembers the laughter from saloons, the click of pistols in the town's wilder days, the voice of a mother singing her child to sleep by the hearth, and the final prayer of an old priest before the church doors were closed. Forever. Old photographs of Bodie are often said to be haunted, not in a frightening way, but in echoes. A hand resting on someone's shoulder, though they swear they were alone when the photo was taken. Once, a traveler brought a recorder, hoping to capture the sound of wind slipping through the old roof tiles. But when he played the file back at home, he heard a soft voice singing an old lullaby in English. Sleep now, child of the west wind. Rest now, where memories rest. An audio expert confirmed. The file hadn't been altered, but no one could explain why the voice was only heard in the recording, and not by anyone present at the time. Bodie isn't frightening, but it is alive in its own quiet way, like a spirit long accustomed to solitude, simply waiting for someone to stop and listen. Every nail, every crack in the wooden walls holds a story, and sometimes, if you're truly still, they'll begin to speak. They'll tell you about the child lost in a snowstorm, found 3 days later, still clutching a tiny music box. They'll speak of the last night Bodie was lit, Christmas Eve, 1889. The townsfolk sang together beneath the falling snow, never knowing that by morning the main mine would collapse, and Bodie would never be the same again. And if you stand still long enough, close your eyes and truly listen. You might hear only the sound of your own voice, echoing in the 1,000-year silence of a town that never really let go of its memories. Bodie never shuts its doors to anyone. It simply stays quiet, like a gatekeeper who never sleeps. Like me, standing on a dusty porch, offering only a gentle smile when someone wanders near. I've been here for a long time, long enough that even the drifting dust whispers back the pieces of old memories. As they walked away, I heard the man say to his wife, "I once promised to bring you to the place where I grew up. Now, you've finally seen it." She smiled. Not the kind of smile born from joy alone, but the smile of 2 souls who have understood each other across a lifetime. Another time, I saw a young boy. He had wandered from his tour group and was sitting quietly in front of the old saloon. He didn't touch his phone, didn't call out for anyone. He just listened. When his mother found him, he said, "Mom, I heard someone playing the piano inside." But there was no one there. The mother smiled softly and stroked his hair. But I knew. The boy had truly heard it. Bodie chooses who it speaks to. Not everyone can hear. One stormy night, I stood beside the old church door. The wooden frame trembled with each gust, like the heartbeat of another world. And then I heard it, a prayer, so faint it seemed to drift in from the year 1890, when the old priest delivered his final sermon to the townspeople. He passed 3 weeks later. They say he didn't want to leave Bodie and asked to be buried on the western edge of the cemetery, where the wind never blew too strong. Since then, each time someone speaks of Bodie, the wind seems to shift just slightly, as if trying to protect the sleep of those who once believed. Bodie isn't just soil and splintered wood. Bodie is a book that was never truly finished. Everyone who comes here, if their heart is light enough, adds a new line to the story. There was once an artist who sat for hours on the porch of house number 3, painting in silence. When he left, his canvas was complete. But curiously, standing in the middle of the street was a man in a cowboy hat. The strange part? He had painted only the landscape. And while he painted, the street had been completely empty. And you, the one listening now, might find yourself dreaming of this town. You may not remember its name, or the house you stood before, but you'll remember the wind. You'll remember the moonlight brushing across the slanted rooftops. You'll remember the floorboards creaking, like a whisper meant only for you. Because Bodie isn't just a place. It's a corner of your mind, where the things you once forgot are quietly waiting to be remembered. As you drift into sleep, let me, Elias Greywind, walk with you down the last stretch of the road. I'll guide you across the small bridge, half broken, past the miner's kitchen, where the scent of old smoke still lingers, and through the grassy field where a child once flew a kite made of newspaper scraps. And then I'll lead you out of the town, not because you're not welcome, but because Bodie always leaves its doors open, yet never holds anyone back. It only whispers, "Thank you for listening. I'll see you again on another quiet night." And you, when you awaken, might find your heart just a little softer, a little lighter, as if the night wind had carried away all the noise and left behind only enough silence for your soul to rest. If that happens, then you've been to Bodie, and I, Elias Greywind, will always be at the gate, waiting for your return, anytime you need a story. If you'd like a place to come back to each night, stop by Stories for a Restful Soul, where I'll always be here waiting. And if these stories have touched something quiet within you, consider subscribing to Elias Greywind, Stories for a Restful Soul, so that each night I, your gatekeeper of peace, can tell you just one more tale before you drift away, wishing you the deepest, most peaceful sleep